in a July 1st, 2013 article by David Crawford on deathpenalty.org, 77% of the U.S. population is Caucasian, meaning that 250 million Caucasians are in the United States. It also showed that 13% of the U.S. population is African American, meaning that there are 40 million African Americans in the United States. Now, if we look at death row, each of them have the exact same amount of defendants sitting on death row. So why is it that two populations, so different, vastly different in numbers, have the exact same amount of people on death row? My name is Aiden, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the disproportionate impact of death row sentencing on African Americans and an overall minority, as well as people in low-income households and people with just general low income. Now, I'm going to talk to you this by talking about the overall death row population, crimes that result in death row sentencing, and how money can truly determine whether or not you are either going to go to prison or whether you are going to die. Now, as stated by Matt Sherry on his June 1st, 2013 article for deathpenalty.org also, both black people and white people each take up in between 42 and 43% amount of the people on death row, with the other 10 to 15% or so varying in between Asian and Hispanic and Latino, just overall majority. Now, what the question I set out to ask was why is the black population so vastly represented when their numbers are so much smaller than that of the Caucasian race? And this comes to my second point, which is death row sentencing. Black on white and white on white crime is the highest prosecuted death penalty sentence. 80% of the victims on death row are there because of the murder of white people. White on black and black on black crime, vastly below, to the point where black on black crime actually has higher numbers of people on death row than white on black crime, which is the least. Now, as stated by David Love in his January 3rd, 2012 article for The Guardian, 80% of black sentences involve a white victim. However, in 2014-2015 census, 83% of Caucasian murders were committed by other Caucasians. So that means that there is only 17% of these murders being committed by African Americans. So if this is how much crime is being committed, why are they getting sentenced at such a higher rate? So I looked into this a little bit. I looked at The Guardian, as well as a website called deathpenalty.org, which is an organization that seeks out to look for representation and other key factors as to why people get sentenced to the death penalty. And when it came down to it, mostly southern states, such as Georgia, Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee, out of the death penalty sentences they had in the state, a majority of them, and by majority I'm talking 80 to 90% of them, consisted of an all-white jury. So in instances where black people were being tried, they were not being tried amongst the jury of their peers, they were being tried amongst the jury of the opposite race. And a lot of the time, if it was a black man, they'd have a white female, and typically people would look for females who had been abused in a relationship and or been in a bad relationship with an African American partner. So it shows how unfair it really was. Now, my last point is how economics and how much money you have or how much money your family have can actually affect whether or not you are going to get the death penalty. So as if race wasn't bad enough, economics plays a huge part in whether or not you get the death penalty. This happens because lawyers cost money, and lawyers are expensive. And unfortunately, if you make less than $150,000 a year and that money is expendable to you, you will not be able to afford an adequate lawyer. And this comes down to the role of a public defender. Now, a public defender is a lawyer that is given to you by the state, and unfortunately, statistics show that they are not very good in these kind of sentences. fact, as stated by, sorry, one moment, as stated in the Guardian article, a good or bad lawyer is directly in correlation with whether or not you go to prison, and 1 in 5 public defenders have actually been disbarred, which means they've had their license taken away, and or they have been accused of showing up drunk or intoxicated on the job, and they've shown that they have had a racial bias towards the people they were actually trying to defend. So when you look at all the factors and look at how everything pulls together, it shows overwhelmingly that the death penalty is not a system that can truly function in our criminal justice system currently. I've done projects on this before, and I've talked with people about this before, and each time I look it up and each time I go over it, there is more and more statistics showing that it's faulty. Justice is never truly served to an individual if they're found innocent after their death. Thank you.